We're here today to talk with Jamie Harvill and to discuss the importance of lasting conversations between worship leaders. What does it mean for us as worship leaders to hold relationships that are dear, and what does it mean to be encouraged by others? When you can look back on your life and you can think about the men and women that have invested into you, that's really what good mentoring and also what good leadership is about. And I have my dear friend and mentor, Jamie Harvill, with us today, and it's awesome to have Jamie. Jamie has actually been there for me 20 years ago when I first began leading worship. And I remember, like if it was, well, let's say like if it was yesterday, and the questions that I had leading worship and just entering a church the first time. I mean, I've done music all my life, but, you know, when it comes to a church band and when it comes to ministry, it almost seems like, wow, how do I get over the hump of working with the senior pastor, the staff, you know, coming up with a set list every week, getting the drummer to show up on time, getting the singers to sing the right notes, the projection lyrics, you know, to make sure they're spell checked and all that stuff. And wow, I mean, all that when we begin leading worship, it's like this never-ending hamster wheel cycle thing during the week, and then you're actually having to lead worship on that Sunday, and then you times that every week and every week and every week by years and years and years. Some guys either get burnt out, other guys get they grow in it and they get better and better at it. For me, I know when I started, I called this guy, Jamie Harvill. And Jamie and I met back at a Maranatha worship conference way back in the early 90s. And I remember Jamie just said, hey, you know, here's my number, give me a call and let me know what you're walking through. And man, I called Jamie like about every other day. And I was like, you know, how do I, you know, get past this barrier thing? And yeah, Maranatha, whoa, I know when I say that word, I'm probably dating myself and Jamie at the same time. But I'm a young guy. I mean, I started when I was young. Jamie picked me up when I was like, what, I was like 17 or something. And anyway, Jamie's been there for me. He's been a rock. He's just been so instrumental that God has used him in my life to pray with me, to encourage me, and to you know, take his time and just and that's really what mentoring is about. So I want to introduce folks to you, Jamie Harvill. Jamie has written the songs Ancient of Days, Firm Foundation. He also has his own ministry called Worship Foundry, and he's been president of that for a very long, long time. He's been with the Maranatha worship team and also Integrity Music for a very long time as well. And just a well-crafted, experienced guitarist, songwriter, singer, and just an overall great guy. So, Jamie, thanks for joining us today. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing well. I'm finally glad we're off to a start here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Jamie, would you start out just telling us and the viewers a little bit about how you got into worship leading and how did God call you to ministry and all that?
Well, worship leading wasn't even a concept, I don't think, when I started. When I was saved back in 1975, it was more like people just leading music, being asked to kind of do the, you know, lead choruses. There was not a position per se. The only worship leaders that I knew of were those guys who, you know, did their arms and had the hymn books and everything. So there was really no place for what I would eventually do. So I think a lot of us made things up as we went. But that was 1975. So that's what, almost 40 years ago, I think, since that happened. But you're talking about something when you introduced this conversation. You said to be able to lead worship, to be able to do the technical things, to be able to lead people. Those are all various skills that are separate type of skills. If we think that we're coming to worship leading with just musical expertise, we're missing several components. So as I grew older and as I grew up into a worship leader, I learned how to do technical things. We're learning today, aren't we, how to do technical things on Google. But you add different skill sets to the greater skill set, which is who you end up being. And I've had mentors along the way that have taught me and stopped their busy lives and long enough to talk to me and teach me how to do these things. So as I sit here today, I'm a product of mentorship and mentoring from other people. But it's been a 40-year experience, and now our concept of worship leader has evolved to being somebody who is way different than what I signed up for 40 years ago.
Yeah. How has that changed? I mean, what do you see?
Well, it's changed because music has become more of a pop-oriented music style, and where once we had a piano and an organ and a choir to accompany us in worship, now we have to have the skill of not just leading choral music or working from the hymn book. Now we have to be good at working with bands. We have to understand rhythm. We have to understand charting, as opposed to just single note, melodies. There's a lot of different things that have come to the game that we never had before, and they're ever evolving. And it's something that I think I'm continuing to learn.
So tell me, like, when you think back on your life, tell us, who were some of the most influential people in your life that made an impact on you?
Well, I remember my first youth group music leader said to me, we really want you to play in our band. I didn't really put together rock and roll guitar like I was playing as a 13, 14, 15-year-old to worship, but she invited me to play in her worship band that they were doing a youth concert thing. And so really she was the first one who believed in me and brought me on. And then as I look into my life, there are people like Garrett Gustafson who gave up he said, I really believe in you as a songwriter, and he wrote a check for $100. And
wow.
With that money, I matched it, and I bought a 4-track recorder, and through that recorder, Gary Sadler and I wrote and demoed Ancient of Days. So that is a really expensive, valuable 4-track recorder that's probably on the bottom of some dump heap somewhere in Alabama. But people like that that really invested time with me and stopped, like I said, their daily busyness to slow down and speak to someone like me.
Right. Well, did you tell us exactly, how did God call you into worship ministry? I mean, when you first heard leading worship, I mean, what went off in your mind?
Well, again, leading worship wasn't there. It was Calvary Chapel, where I was raised in Southern California. I started attending their services at night, and I started seeing these guys that were singer-songwriter types lead congregations in singing choruses, and that's all we knew what they were back in those days. So that was my archetype. It was the singer-songwriter kind of a person leading. And so I started to say, I can do that. I can lead songs, but at the same time, there was an emotional, spiritual connection that I personally felt with those songs and how they made me feel closer to the Lord. So I started to learn that if I correctly led, then people would follow me.
Yeah.
Without feeling like I was dragging them. I learned that it was a natural thing for them to join me and to come along. And I knew that if I knew the song well enough and I sang it in tune, right, then it would help me to keep them with me. So, I learned being a good musician was important. I learned being a good singer was important. I learned a good song was important. A lot of people are trying to lead worship and they're giving people the wrong key to sing songs in, or they're too high or the words are too many. So I learned those skills fairly early on.
You mean there's a wrong key?
Could be. Of course, Jesus is the most holy of keys. But
oh gosh, come on.
I don't even know if Jesus is a key.
No. One more joke like that.
A chord. It's
one
the
more
most
joke like
holy
that.
of
I won't
chords.
ask you one again.
It's the most, yeah. But no, I think there are keys that help people to sing along, which I call the congregational singing range. And there is definitely a congregational singing range that keeps people singing with you.
Right, absolutely. So what, we talk about mentoring, we talk about, you share with us how people have helped you along in your journey when you became a worship leader. And so can you tell us, what does mentoring mean to you, and why is it important?
Mentoring means to me somebody who really, in its basic form, has nothing to gain from hanging out with you. You, as a mentee, I guess, if you want to put it
Right.
that way, have everything to gain. Because what they're doing is the mentor is giving to you, the mentee, very hard-earned secrets of how to do the job that you're wanting to do. And it's something that that I think is generous on somebody's behalf.
Yeah.
They're giving you things that you don't already have, but in the process of you learning them as a mentee, you become skilled and you can jump ahead of life experience in many ways to go and to do things. Like right now, I could tell you, okay, you're probably making a mistake, not you, Branon, but generally. I
Sure.
can tell you as a mentor, I can say, listen, the reason why your people aren't singing along with you is because you're singing your melody in a key that they can't sing in. You may have never thought about it, but if you go below a B flat or above a D, which is an octave or so above that B flat middle keyboard, you may not have experienced that, but I can tell you in about 30 seconds how to improve your ministry incredibly without having to go into huge technical things. So a mentor is giving information for the mentee so that they can move way ahead and become a better musician and a better worship leader.
Right. So you mentioned a few things, and Eric had asked a question. Eric Whitehead joined us on a chat, and he asked that very question. So what is the congregational singing range?
Well, the congregational singing range, thank you, Eric. I see that you wrote that here. It's very limited because Jane Doe and John Doe in the congregation, they're not able to sing in the key that a lot of our worship artists are putting their songs in for the radio, for records. It's a very limited range. If you look on the middle keyboard, the B flat right below middle C is about as low as you want to go in your lowest range. But
Right.
then you look up to D, an octave and a third above that. You see that that's about as high as you want to go. And the perfect song to use as a example of that is "Lord, I lift your name on high." Lord, I lift your name on high. Lord, I long to sing your praises. That B note is about as low as you want to go, and then you came from heaven to earth to, which is a D.
Yeah.
That's about as high as you really want to go.
Yeah.
Because if you go any higher than that, your people are going to go, wait a second, I can't follow you.
Right.
And so the congregational singing range is from B flat below middle C to D, about an octave and a third above middle, an octave and a second, I should say, above middle
Right.
C. So it's a very, very helpful thing, and I can tell you that, and you can turn around your ministry right there with that information, and that's not very hard for me to tell you that.
Yeah.
But that's one example of what mentoring can do.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, you brought that up as far as what mentoring can do, and that's something that we're very, very interested in here at Worship Team Training. And Jamie, everybody, is one of our mentors that we have asked to come on board and join our staff. We have a fabulous round of mentors that have joined this ministry: Tony Guerrero, Rick Muchow, Sally Morgenthaler, Holland Davis, Benji Coer, Brandon B., a lot of great guys, Stephanie Kelly, Norm Stockton, Gina Stockton, a lot of great people that are very, very, very gifted. But it's not just their skill that they're gifted in. It's really more about their heart. I mean, Jamie, wouldn't you agree that it's really about the heart that's in ministry that leads to people rather than the skill, even though skill is important?
Yeah, absolutely, because I believe that when we started this conversation, you listed off many things that a worship leader has to have in their gifting, and I think having the right heart is one of our biggest assets as a worship leader, because that is something that brings our spiritual intuition to the game. It brings our people skills to the game. It brings our our creative sensibility to the game. So having that heart is a very important thing, along with musical skill. Having not just musical skill, but social skill, emotional skills, how to not flare up when somebody's having a meltdown in rehearsal. It takes a bit of emotional intelligence to deal with that. So those are skills that we can glean, and I think as experienced worship leaders and people working with people, we can help you with that and give you heads up on those issues, as well as administrative skills, technical skills. All those things, when they're put together in a basket, are highly valuable skills that we can bring to the table.
Surely. And we have, folks, we have a 10-week program in which you would meet with either Jamie or if it was Norm, Tony, myself, and it's once a week for an hour for 10 weeks. And we have a book that I had written that's about 50 or so pages, PDF, and really it's just a guide in which we stem conversations on and ask about, hey, how did this past Sunday's worship go? How's the relationship with your pastor? What are some of the pitfalls there that you find within leading your team? And we just take that time to listen and to get to know you to help construct a path that makes sense in your ministry journey. You can find all this at worshipteamtraining.com/mentoring. And I'll post up that link on Facebook and also Twitter, as well as if you sign up, I'm going to put a link out there. Jamie, and thank you for this, Jamie. Jamie's offered for us a link to download his music, and he's got like a free rendition of, what was it, On the Cross?
At the Cross.
At the Cross, sorry. On the Cross, At the Cross. At the Cross, he has an MP3 along with a chart, so if you sign up, I'll post that link, and you can get a free download. And also, we have our more information on the mentoring program itself. And we also have our lovely coordinator, Jen Haglund, which Jen is the actual person that you speak with if you want to be mentored by Jamie or Tony or anyone else. Jen does a great job, and she's there to answer questions. So just real quick, Jen, can you just wave and say hello? This is Jen. Say hi, Jen. There you go. That's good. So back to Jamie, and also Jamie, you wrote a really awesome book, and I'd like to, if we can, just kind of, can you talk about the book that you had written just recently?
Yeah, it's just coming out in a few weeks. It's called Worship Foundry, and it's just kind of like what I feel in my heart, what I've learned over the past 40 years, what can become really, I can help people jump ahead into knowledge and skill sets that they would learn in a lifetime. And so I pretty much list those out, as well as the congregational singing range and some hints on writing songs, as well as how, administrative things that they can use.
Right.
But it's really a pretty comprehensive book from beginning to end about worship, and it talks about some of my journeys and some stories that I've collected along the years and experiences that I've had in church ministry, and I think it's I really pray it's well received. It's Worship Foundry, and it's going to be on Westbo Thomas Nelson coming out in a few weeks. Thanks, Branon. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Well, it's great. I mean, you talk about, like what you said, becoming a strong servant leader, operating out of an effective mission and vision
for
worship ministry. And most people don't think about having a mission vision for their worship ministry, and you cover that greatly in your book here. Mm-hmm. And also, how to choose great teams, as well as developing an effective God-focused worship service. You say all these great things in your book, and it's important for us to learn. Give us a little bit of insight. What led you to write this book, and how does that relate to mentoring and mentoring other worship leaders?
Well, a lot of folks think, I'm a good guitar player, I got a good haircut. You know, I have a few pair of skinny jeans, and you're welcome. You know, and they think that, well, and some pastors are so anxious to get young folks in their church that they're putting people on stage, and they're missing a lot of they're missing a lot of areas of growth and that people need to go through. First of all, if you're going to go somewhere, you need to have directions and you need to have a destination. As far as worship leading goes, you need to know where you're headed. And it's better to get the plan before you start on your journey than when you do, if you sort of try to make it up as you go, which I think a lot of us who are, you know, like to play and lead in the Spirit, we think that that's a spiritual aspect of the journey, but actually I think it's just as spiritual, and I think God can speak to us just as much 2 weeks, 2 months before that point, so where we can produce, and I say that in a spiritual way, so that we can listen to God, put together what we need to put together in our worship journey, and have time to actually learn the songs well and rehearse them well and do all of the things that we use in our worship services like videos and different things, so that when we are delivering that service, we're ready and we're prepared. And that way, hopefully in our preparedness, we're rested and we can deliver it from confidence. And that way people will come along with us. And you know, the more confident we are in the Lord, really, the more transparent we can be, so people can look through us and see Jesus. The more nervous we are and the more uncertain we are about where we're headed, the more people see us and the less they see Jesus. So preparedness is very important. And if I'm going to tell somebody who I'm trying to be, you know, in a mentoring situation, I would want them to know that first and foremost is being prepared and being rested and using excellence in their delivery of what they do.
Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us again. You saw the video that just cut out. Actually, what happened was that so many people on Google Hangout were trying to log in that we actually crashed the program. So for those of you who are trying to connect with us, so sorry that you couldn't, but let's just say that the whole thing was a success. So good job, everybody, for coming and joining us today on our Google Hangout video chat with Jamie Harvill. As a special offer from Jamie, we want to say, number one, thank you for his time and being here. Jamie is actually giving all of us a free download from his new album, one song. This is a remixed hymn, At the Cross. It's a great tune. It's an MP3 and a chart to go with it. So be sure to download these two items from the link that I'm posting up on Facebook. If you're seeing this now on Google or Twitter or whatever, be sure to go to the link and download it. We're going to do this again next Wednesday at 12 o'clock Central Standard Time. Be sure to look out for the links as we pop them out, and we hope to have you again, and we will do this thing. So thanks so much, worship teams and friends. We'll see you next time.